Hello, and welcome to another episode of Self-Improvement for Women. I am your host, Hope Long, and today I'm very excited because I have an amazing guest. She is a Creatrix Transformologist, and she specializes in ancestral trauma, depression, anxiety, and grief. She is a co-author of 2 bestsellers, and she's an absolute genius when it comes to the female mind. I would love to introduce you guys to Maria McGrath.
Hi, thanks so much for having me on. I really love getting on here and talking to everyone.
I'm so excited you're here because you have so much knowledge to give. I'd love for you to kind of just start off, maybe talk a little bit about what it is that you do and this generational trauma.
Okay, so I guess for me it all started when I myself struggled with depression for quite a number of decades probably. I didn't really know what it was when I was younger because it wasn't talked about like what it was now. And I don't know if you want to get into all of that now, the depression. I struggled, I guess, starting when I was around 15, I always felt like I didn't fit in or I wasn't good enough or there was something wrong with me. It was just all of these bits and pieces of thoughts. And I'd get really in my head and shut down from other people. And I just felt really sad, and that's just what it was to me. I just felt sad. I didn't call it depression or anything like that. I was just isolated, I guess. I felt isolated and alone.
Yeah.
And it sort of come and went all through, my 20s. And then in my 30s, when I was still single, I hadn't had children, which was the only thing I'd ever wanted was I was going to be a mum. That was, that was it. That was the goal, the life plan. And it didn't happen. I got deeper into the depression and deeper. And with more depression become more isolation. I felt like, definitely there was something wrong with me. So I would push people away or, I started feeling really toxic, I guess. My emotions got the better of me. It went from just feeling sad to feeling angry and feeling jealous of other people and envious and resentment. And they built until all I was this angry person. And I'm sure I had a thing on my forehead saying, F off, go away. It was like I was repelling everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so much more alone, even though I wanted people to include me. If they did, I would push them away. It was just this, like 2 magnets that don't go, like we just couldn't, they were just repelling. So the lonelier and sadder, and, it was just this spiral into deep depression. And I tried a lot of things. There was some part of me that always knew that if I was going to get better, if I was going to feel better, then I had to be the one to find the solution. It wasn't something that somebody else could do for me. There was just a part of me that knew that. And for a long time, I looked outside of myself. I left town. I moved to different towns. I got different jobs. I went to different relationships. I went overseas. I, traveled, and I was always looking for different, if I just had, a better house or a better job or a better man or a better something, it would fall into place. And it wasn't until, I guess, when I turned 40, I tried all these other different things as well as moving. I tried NLP and timeline and therapy and counselling and so many different things. And it wasn't until I found this, it found me really, a female specific thing. This lady that I'd met in all my travels, she sent me an email, said, I've created this amazing thing. It's for the female mind. I thought, well, I have to try it. I have to try it. I've tried everything else. It wasn't until then that I realised that the answers weren't outside, they were inside. I had to heal the inside to then be the better version and find all of that other stuff outside. It just comes when you're, the best version of yourself, I guess. And it was through that journey and that healing that I did, the really deep healing within, that then I started learning all about the female mind and our female design and how different it is and how we've inherited traumas and emotions and beliefs, conditioning and patterns from our past generations, our ancestors. So, you know, for the last 10 years, I've been helping other women gain some inner wisdom, I guess, and then get to a place where they're ready for that healing as well.
That's so awesome. And you blew my mind when we were talking about this before, because I did not realize that we can carry, is it up to 8 generations?
Science has proven 14 generations. So it's called epigenetics, and it's been around for about 50 years. The science of epigenetics has been around forever, but most people haven't heard of it. And just like we have our genetic predisposition, our eye color, our bent pinky finger from grandma, you know, all of our genetic inherited bits and pieces, we also have the epigenetic, the inherited emotions and traumas from past generations. And, you know, there wouldn't be anyone, I don't think, who goes through life without having lost somebody. You know, our parents, you know, eventually the hope is that a parent doesn't die before their children. I mean, their children don't die before them. So there's always somebody's losing somebody in the journey of life. So if we've stored 14 generations of grief, you know, it's like, it's not just this one person has caused this huge amount within you that you're living with right now. It's triggered all of that past grief that's been in the DNA as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you get snow where you are? I sort of thought the other day, it's like a snowball. You know, you can grab a handful of snow and you squash it up. And then if you want to make a snowman, you roll it on the ground and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Mm-hmm. So through the generations, our sadness gets bigger and bigger because we've inherited, it's always been being passed down through the genes. Our grief, our sadness, our hurt, our feeling of being disconnected or being not good enough.
Yeah, it made me think of how, you know, how women like just really recently got rights, like, you know, and we became real people, you know, before where we were, you know, to be quiet, sit down, etc. So it's just crazy to me that, you know, although I haven't lived that, you know, I haven't lived without my voting rights and stuff, but to think about how that has carried down regardless, like in the back of my mind, something tells me still that I'm just a woman. I just need to sit down, be pretty, you know.
Yeah. And there's a suppression in our gender. Like I know men can inherit a lot of emotional baggage as well, but not as much as women because they were not suppressed like our gender was. You know, we weren't allowed to go out and work. We weren't allowed to go to university. We weren't allowed to be heard or seen or anything at certain points in time through the centuries. There was a lot of suppression of women, and something that's playing really big now because there are so many women creating businesses and getting out and they're pushing their boundaries. There's this, you know, to be seen and to be heard, you know, doing videos and talking and being out there. 500 years ago, 400 years ago, a woman would have been killed for speaking her truth. So that suppression is in us. And when a coach says, just do it, it's not that simple because you've got 400, 500 years in your DNA saying, well, I can't do that. It's not this tiny little silly belief. It's, I will die. Mm-hmm. If I do this, I could die. They don't know why, but that's what's going on within their internal system because it's stuck in the DNA.
Yeah, it's like an unconscious fear, and you don't even know it's there.
Yeah, the doubts and insecurities and fears are actually very real. It's not just a simple little silly little video. It's been there for centuries. So a lot of women struggle, and then they think because coaches or therapists or whatever tell them to do these steps and they can't do it, they think, well, what's wrong with me? I'm not good enough. There is something wrong with me. I must be broken. And then they beat themselves up and the pattern repeats.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, that just it just blew my mind and then I couldn't stop thinking about it after we had talked. I was like, oh my gosh, it was heavy. That was a heavy subject for me.
Yeah.
And so what you do now is you help women release all of that internal or inherited baggage, and you call it restoring them to their authentic selves. So what does that look like when you're, doing these therapies?
Yeah, well, it's cutting the ties with the past. Okay, so the process itself that we do is helping a woman go through story, because we're very visual. We create images in our mind, and it's through a story where we get a woman to see a different perspective, and it has to come from within her mind, her heart, her deep wisdom. If I tell you you're beautiful, you don't believe me. But if you get it from within in here, it's not your conscious mind, but your subconscious. If your subconscious says, I am beautiful, then nobody can tell you differently, because that is now a knowing. So it's there. It just has to be reprogrammed, really. It's like, you've got a computer and it's got, Word, and you've installed all these programs, okay? Its original design was meant to do this, 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 this. But then a heap of people have come on and they've all played and they've downloaded stuff, and it's got a heap of viruses now. Basically, we press the factory reset button, clear all the crap, all the stuff that wasn't yours. It's come from somebody else playing around. And then we reinstall the positive programs, which come from a woman's own, it's her own words, because I don't know what steps you've taken. I don't know where your soul has been. I don't know what your ancestors went through, but you do, because the good stuff, the wisdom is in you just as much as the bad stuff. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So you have all the knowledge, all the wisdom. You've just got to, I help you tap into that easy and simply and painlessly for women. You don't have to talk about your story or the pain or all the stuff that's happened in this lifetime, because if you're feeling the emotion, you can't let it go to get a clear image or clear perception of something else. So we create a story where you're not in it. You're seeing somebody else, like in a movie, you're watching a movie of somebody else, and you're gaining these wisdoms from seeing this movie play out, that kind of thing. Not to give the intellectual property a ball away, but it's very simple for women. It's designed for the way our brain works. It's just tapping into your own wisdom.
So talking about how our brains work a little bit, you had this amazing analogy and you just now briefly touched on it a little bit about the female mind versus the male mind. And you talked about the hardwares and the programming, and men's brains and women's brains are totally different operating systems. Like we are like a Mac or an Apple, and then they're like Windows, right?
Yes.
And then you also had this awesome analogy with the Christmas lights, and I'd love for you to talk about that.
So I had a couple of really simple little, what do you call them, props. So the male brain's kind of like this. It's compartmentalized. They can separate all the different areas of their life. So they have something for work and for home, for going fishing, for time with the guys, for the kids. And when they want to be in that moment, so they can go to work and they pull this box out and they can forget all of this other stuff. It's just one of the things. But they also have a nothing box, which is like a stress relief valve. So they have an inbuilt stress relief valve program that women do not have. So we stress 10 times, 100 times more, because we can't actually, unless we stop and do really, go into meditation or go and do something. We have to do something to try and shut our brain down, because everything is connected. Here's the lights. Everything is connected to everything in the female brain. So it's sort of kind of like that. It's this great big ball of mess where the kids and the work and the partner and the family and the extended family and everything is all intertwined. We can't go to work and just think about work and not think about the kids at home or our sick mum or whatever. We can't not take things personally either, where men can, and you'll hear it in personal development. Don't take it personally. It's not about you, but we do take everything personally. We're inferential. Everything we make it about us. The retinas in our eyes are completely different. We see a finer detail, and a man has his retinas, they see movement. That's why they're better drivers than us. The functionality just is. They're a different functionality, and it's not one's better than the other or anything like that. It just is. And knowing our functionality, the way our system works, our design, can only make us better at what we do if we're doing it to suit us instead of trying to download a program that wasn't even meant for us.
Right.
And it's the same with men. Yeah.
I so love that. Oh goodness, I love it, love it. Oh my gosh, I just love talking to you because this is such an interesting topic, and it's not something that gets talked about very often. And I think it's really, really important that women definitely understand their female design. And it's also important to understand that their depression isn't always their fault. It's not that they did something. They're carrying around somebody else's stuff and they cannot help it. It's not, you're right. It's simply not, oh, that's not yours to worry about. Just put it over there. Don't worry about it. We can't do that. Well, you
can't do that. Yeah.
And so you've got to have.
The same with anxiety, and the same with grief, and the same with all of that. And I think for me, knowing that made me feel better because I didn't understand. If I don't know why I feel like this, how can I possibly tell somebody else? Or how can somebody, understand me if I don't understand me? But you don't have to understand where it come from or why it's there to be able to get rid of it. Right. And that's the most important thing. There is something that can heal it so quickly and painlessly. I had a woman who come to me, like I had 30 years of depression and it was gone. The worst of it I still had was gone in 3 days. Like we did a full on, that's not how we do it now, but that's how I did it 10 years ago. I still had to work on all the business blocks and the insecurities, but I worked on the sadness and the grief and the really big stuff in that big 3 day. And there's a video on YouTube that says, watch Maria lose 10 years on her face in 5 days. And it changes the cells of your body. That's where we're working. So you can see a physical difference when you release these emotions.
That's amazing. That is so amazing. I think it's also important to know that, maybe part of this journey is you need to have a little bit more compassion for yourself. And
Absolutely.
yeah. And because we're busy, right? We're thinking about 100,000 things at one time. We don't have time to be like nice to ourselves, or like our inner voice sometimes, again, like you've said, is our own worst critic. Yep. And so rather than, having compassion for ourselves, we'll spend time beating ourselves up over things that we cannot control.
No, we've never been taught to put ourselves first. We've been conditioned to nurture everybody else and put ourselves last. And we've never, ever been taught to know what self-love and self-worth is, to put yourself. It's becoming more and more now. But I know when I went to school, if you were confident, it was like all the other kids wanted to smack it out of you. You're up yourself. Well, you think you're so much better. So, you were instantly, oh, shit, I can't do that. I can't be me because people will pick on me. And it's just the way that it was. And it still is. You see all this bullying and, going on all the time. And if more people, if a woman heals herself, she will heal and help the next generation. That's how it'll work. So we need to start with us. We need to be experiencing joy and peace and that kindness to ourselves as well as to others, to then show the next generation how to do that for themselves and to the others.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Well, Maria, thank you so much for today. Before we go, I have to ask you a question. If you were to pass tomorrow, what is one thing that you would want to leave with the world?
I think it's the knowledge that for women, we have our unique design. And the more we know and understand ourselves, the more that we can gain that peace and wisdom, and it becomes a ripple out to everybody else. You know, I know when I healed me, I rippled the goodness that was then, instead of the toxic stuff, you know, out to my nieces and nephews and everyone who was around me, creating more harmony and peace and joy and confidence and all of that good stuff. So it's knowledge that I want to leave with the world, especially for women, because we're just not taught everything that is in the education. As you said at the start, you know, we weren't teachers, and we weren't doctors, and we weren't allowed to be really even working. So everything's come from the male perspective down in education. So we need to get that knowledge of women and our differences out there.
It's awesome. Thank you again. This has been so good. I think this is going to really help a lot of people, a lot of women. And for those of you watching, if you want to connect with Maria, I have all of her handles and stuff down here at the bottom. You should certainly check out her 2 best-selling books. And she is a real person. So if you send her a direct message, she's going to talk to you. All right. Yes. So questions, comments, concerns, you can reach out. Of course, you can reach out to me as well. And you guys, this has been awesome. Thank you so much again for watching, and we will see you next time.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.